Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Every company has a story to tell, from the small startup to the large enterprise, and everything in between. This is one of them. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello everybody, this is your host Sean Martin. Thank you for joining us for another Redefining Cybersecurity podcast here on ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. I'm coming to you live-ish from London at Infosecurity Europe here at the Excel, and as you can hear in the background, the vibe is really good. I'm hearing that there are a lot of great conversations, good energy today, a lot of folks interested in what's going on, what's new, how are things looked at differently. That's the name of the game here is Rethink Cybersecurity, the power of cybersecurity for business. And I'm thrilled to have Nir Loya on the show. Nir, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. We're halfway through the day pretty much, and good chats.
Yeah, awesome chats, amazing conversations. Yeah.
Very good. So before we get into the topic, I know you guys have a launch today that we're going to talk about a little bit about you and your role, and I envy you and your VP of product management. I used to be in that role, not VP, but I used to build products.
Really?
Amazing time in my life, in my career. And so tell me about your role at Cymulate.
So I'm a VP of product at Cymulate. I've been here for two and a half years. For that, several roles in different companies in Israeli intelligence forces. And that's about it. Really great company, as you're going to hear in a couple of seconds.
Yeah. Well, let's actually get into that. An overview of what Cymulate does, kind of where it fits into an organization's InfoSec program, if you will.
Yeah. So basically, as a very short pitch, Cymulate as an exposure management and security validation company, customers use our platform to continuously assess, test, and improve their cybersecurity resilience all across their different various environments, across the different security controls and policies, and really drive efficient risk reduction over time, coming in from the offensive perspective. Scanning like an attacker, validating and simulating attacks like an attacker, and analyze the results and drive remediation from that standpoint.
So describe to me a little bit how it differentiates from some of the, I'll say, older technologies or processes that organizations might be. I think it's different than a pen test, right?
Yeah, it's different than a pen test. The idea is that while pen test is a point-in-time assessment, usually a very large engagement, the idea is that pen test comes in a reactive world. Most of security departments, up to a couple of before the last couple of years, most of this world was really reactive to threats, reactive to issues in the environment. And as our market grew, we were founded in 2016. We're this market kind of breach attack simulation market for security controls. Validation was just starting to emerge. Organizations started to see the value in continuously evaluate, continuously test their controls in their environment. So it's not just a point in time. They're always with the hand on the pulse, I'd say, to what's going on in their environment, so their remediation would be pinpointed and efficient. And this is really kind of takes the security evaluation approach from point in time to continuous, thus being way more efficient.
Right. Speaking of continuous, our good friends at Gartner like to create categories, right? So what the category they call it, CTEM, which is Continuous Threat Exposure Management. Mm-hmm. And so I've heard of a lot of the acronyms and a lot of the categories. I'll have to admit this is a newer one for me. So maybe an overview from you for what that category entails.
Yeah.
What is start and stop?
Yeah. So basically, it's a program rather than a product. It's a program for continuously evaluating exposures throughout the environment, throughout the organization, and really heavily tie into the business. This side of the organization, you probably know a real challenge today for a lot of organizations is to connect security into business impact. What does it actually mean that there's a vulnerability in my environment? What does it mean that there's cloud misconfiguration? How it affects the business? And the CTEM program is all about connecting the security insights to the business impact, to the business risk, right. I'd say, and the tools in our market, attack surface management tools, continuous automated red teaming tools, breach and attack simulation tools, which by the way, obviously Cymulate, it's part of Cymulate suite, is all about informing this program with what needs to be done, with what exposures are there, and how it ties back to the business. The program basically starts with scoping of the relevant environments based on the business itself, be it business lines, product lines, critical infrastructure for the business, basically everything that ties into revenue of the organization. The second phase of the program is basically identification, discovery, I'd say, basically correlating the insights of the scoping and identifying what are the assets that are related to those business contexts. Third is basically prioritize what you would like to do in this environment, how we'd like to evaluate, what are the most important things around those assets that needs to be validated. Fourth stage is actually validating those environments from different angles. What exposures are there? Are my controls actually compensating for those exposures? How am I evaluating the risk of this environment? And the fifth stage is mobilization. I like to call it, I have all the exposures, I have the insights, I now turn it into actual mitigation steps, into a remediation plan to reduce this risk. And this whole process is kind of cyclical. Okay? Rinse and repeat until you get to a specific baseline, I'd say, for each side of the business in terms of security risk.
Love it.
And the challenge here, and this kind of goes to our announcement, the challenge here is that this program is amazing, and it informs by a lot of different data sources in every organization. Yep. I think we've met with a lot of different security leaders that tells us about tens and sometimes hundreds of different security controls in their environment that tells them great stories, great insights, great information, but it's all about connecting the dots between those tools to really create a good story. And currently, this process is done manually by those organizations to see beyond the trees, to see the forest, right. To tell the entire story. And this is a main challenge today for organizations to implement the CTEM program without a good security data, single source of truth to fuel this program. This is basically what we're introducing. With our new exposure analytics product, we basically integrate along with Cymulate's different tools, the ASM, breach and attack simulation, continuous automated red teaming, with additional third-party data sources that collects data about vulnerabilities, about misconfigurations, about controls, compensating controls, about identities, about assets in your environment. Put it all together and applying Cymulate's offensive logic, thinking like an attacker, to create unified taxonomy around it, single common language like the CTEM program drives, correlate those bits of information, contextualize it with the business information. Right. What actually connects, gaps the bridge between the security and the business side, and basically gives you value in 4 main areas. Vulnerability prioritization on that specific level, risk-based posture view, which is business contextualized, ties into every business unit, every revenue generator you have with a clear view of the risk attached to it. Risk profiled asset inventory. It's no longer just about the asset and the information about it, it's the actual risk profile that was collected from all the findings that all of your security tools had to say about it. And finally, a data-driven remediation plan that shows exact risk reduction for every task, every mitigation, and every initiative that is part of the routine day-to-day plan for the organization, and the roadmap, the security roadmap that intends to tie into the business, support business initiatives, enable the business while keeping the risk at the baseline level.
Nice. That's great. That's a great overview. And I love that kind of starts off with the scoping and understanding what the business looks like. Many times on my show, and I love the word exposure as well, because I think that's, to me, that's the key, right? So it's where am I exposed as a business, and how do I reduce that exposure? And oftentimes I'll look at it in the context of, well, if I have this business unit that's driven by these business processes that are enabled by these systems that knock over our security team with ungodly numbers of patches and constantly pushing the button to configure things, and it's unlocking a different button that needs to be pushed back tomorrow, and it's just this weird environment. If you can just rethink about how you build the business to eliminate the exposure from the beginning, you're in a much better place. So how can you help organizations take their current environment, evaluate that, put a plan into place, and then maybe even move them up that left-hand side of the chain to help them define their business in a better way that's less exposed?
So we like to see security as a business enabler, and a lot of organizations, and these days, with recent bills in the US and recent regulations in Europe, organizations today are heavily more into security, more informed about security, not just in terms of regular compliance, but in terms of actual risk. And business stakeholders are heavily more into this, into security, because this is the one of the major risks out there. And so, starting with the scoping process of identifying, this is my revenue stream, this is the assets that needs to support this revenue stream. Let's take, for example, an organization that have an online service built on top of servers and users and segments for this service. All those needs to support the business. Now you're taking it the next step with evaluating what could happen around those environments, what could potentially be exposed out there. And once you have the view of the entire exposures in this very specific unit, not just the nature of the asset and the environmental components of the risk, but also the actual findings out there, you're able to drive follow-on initiatives that might change the architecture of this environment, might drive additional resources to guard this environment and to put more compensating controls, because sometimes it's easier to reconfigure the EDR rather than to patch 1,000 endpoints.
Exactly.
And these are the type of decisions that every security organization has to take every day. There's alternatives and there's trade-offs for everything, but without the information, without them being informed about the exposures, the different levels, and the alternatives that they have on the table, they cannot take the decision. They cannot take the decision of, this is more important to the business, this asset is more important to the business than another asset, and this is how I'm going to drive the remediation. And basically with an exposure analytics platform that is being aimed to be the single source of truth for this exposure data from all across your estate, you basically can act upon more broader data, more product correlation, especially when everything is used with the same common language. And again, this ties back to the CTEM program, which basically aims to do that, having a unified program that business-informed security, which informs business back then, the cyclical process that we were talking about.
I love it. I mean, it's super cool. I mean, how, if there's, I'm sure you have many users in the organization that value and benefit from this, but is there a primary person in the organization that you're really trying to connect with, and what would you tell them for a good way to start working with you with the CTEM and your launch of the offering?
I'd say, first of all, asking the question about security posture management, what's currently working, what's not working today in the organization. Every CISO has their own roadmap for a year, for 3 years, knows the pains, knows the challenges, and approaching the CISO with tool to actually validate the posture is a first step.
Right.
Validate what they can validate on day one, and then based on it, expand, kind of like a crawl, walk, run approach. Mm-hmm. You don't usually start with all the tools, with everything you have. You start with clear validation project, clear focus on what you can remediate, what you can do currently, mostly around security controls, traditional security controls. But then you build on top of it and you expand to vulnerability management, to cloud misconfiguration management, identity management, segmentation, stuff that are traditionally more on the IT side of stuff. And you do this process, you expand in a methodological way as we offer to our clients, all the way until you have a clear view of the posture in your environment. And this is where you can actually take a step forward, start bringing in other pieces of data, not just Cymulate data. Right? Because when you get the picture, when you get the offensive mindset of how an attacker would look at your environment and how you should drive remediation from that standpoint of actual risk, not theoretical risk, this is where the other tools comes in, right. Other data comes in into the same model, which you already know, and you already know how to operate. And in this way, you'll be able to drive remediation faster because you're already in that mindset.
And what you said earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but with alternatives that may make sense to you, or better sense than the traditional way you always tackle the problem over and over and over. Insanity is doing the same thing over and hoping for a different result, right?
100%. It's all about the business context of stuff, and sometimes you need to put some alternatives on the table and get a clear understanding of what each one means in terms of risk and risk reduction. So put it in the face of the business stakeholder, but now you can have a clear conversation.
Nice. Yeah, I love it. Well, Nir, it's been great chatting with you. Anything else to add that we didn't touch on? I mean, it seems pretty cool to me.
I think we've covered pretty much everything. We'd be more than happy for customers to reach out, discuss about exposure analytics, discuss about current pains. We're aiming towards solving our clients' challenges, helping them see where they are, where they want to be, set the goal, and then walk together in deep partnership to get to this goal.
I love it. All right, well, thanks for this chat, Nir, and for those listening, there'll be links in the show notes to connect with Nir and look at the press release and see that all that Cymulate has to offer.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and the story made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.